Hello and welcome back to the Start a Glamping Business podcast. We have a very marketing-centric episode for you today with today's guest, Conrad O'Connell, founder of BuildUp Bookings, which, according to him, is the best digital marketing agency in the vacation rental space. Vacation rentals, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, etc. obviously have a lot of overlap with glamping and outdoor hospitality, and I've been following Conrad's content on LinkedIn for a long time now, and it's pretty clear that he is an expert in the space. So we've got a great episode for existing operators and prospective operators who understand the importance of marketing today. And we're going to go into a few specific topics within marketing that, without getting too technical, are going to hopefully introduce some people to some new concepts and help people learn a little bit more. So, Conrad, welcome to the show. Could you just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and your background?
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad to be here. I know it took a while for us to link up, but I'm happy it's finally happened in the days today. So yeah, my name is Conrad. I'm the founder of BuildUp Bookings. We started back in 2016. I worked at agencies previously and just thought maybe I could do this on my own. So that was kind of the only thought process I had when I got going back then. Long story short, we've been focusing on the short-term rental vacation rental industry since that time frame, since 2016. 95% of our clients are in that space. We have a few that are outside that space, but for the most part, that's what we've been focused on. Throughout that whole time, our kind of core competencies have been search, social, and email marketing. And a few years ago, we started adding web development into the mix. So we're kind of expanding our team and growing. We've got 15 either full-time or full-time equivalent type employees. And then I always joke, with clients and with my team, an army of contractors, writers, designers, et cetera, to get the project done when necessary. We've been growing a lot. I think our focus has remained the same. I think we've been learning a lot, and I try to share that learning. So I like doing stuff like this to hopefully give people some value and information that's practical and useful, and that's what I'm hoping to do today.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit about this towards the end, but you're also a content creator, right? You've got a book, you've got a course. What else do you do outside of BuildUp? Obviously, it's all related, but what else kind of things do you do?
Yeah, I think going into that angle was something that I knew. The stuff that I was saying to like clients and things like that was impactful and positive. Like the results were generally pretty positive when I worked with clients. So it seemed obvious to me that, it would make sense to lean into more of that, like sharing, and then people will kind of be drawn into me. So obviously I have somewhat selfish motivations for the reason for sharing the information and content, right? Like there's some financial motivation for me there, but I try to make it so that whatever I'm posting is something that you can learn from, or you can learn my philosophy, which may or may not always perfectly line up with what, everyone else out there says. I think there's a lot of people in our space, unfortunately, who talk a lot about direct bookings, but don't really do a lot of it themselves. They sort of have pigeonholed themselves as experts, even though they're, kind of some of their actual experience day to day isn't great. So I try to make my, information I share and content I share in the book, like you mentioned, and things like that, very practical. Like these are the things that actually work. And the truth is some of those things are actually pretty simple. It's just doing them consistently and over a long period of time. But to your core question there, maybe it was like hobbies outside of work.
No, I was asking about the books and the content, but tell me about your hobbies as well.
No, it's good. We'll get way off track. So I won't even do that to you or the listener. We can come back to that at a time.
Not a problem. So on your website, on the services page, there's 5 broad categories that you help people with. And so what I thought we'd do is we'd go through each of those categories because, whilst a lot of people might have heard of each of those categories, they might not know specifics and details and how they can apply those kind of skills to their glamping businesses. So I'm going to go through each of those one by one. And just so you know, those categories are website design, SEO, search engine optimization, paid search, social media, and email marketing. So we're going to go through each of those and how outdoor hospitality businesses can apply those to their marketing. So let's start easy, something that everyone will have heard of, website design. Could you just give us some kind of fundamentals of what you think a good website is for an outdoor hospitality, short-term rental, vacation rental looks like and why it's important?
Yeah, I think if I could narrow it down to just a few characteristics, I think it would be clear. Like, so you get there and number one, where the property is. You'd be shocked how often I look at like these kind of beginner websites or people starting a website for the first time. And I open up the homepage and maybe there's a nice picture at the top. Like that's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But I don't even know where it is. Like the headline on the website might be something to the effect of like escape the city or something like that. I can imagine in this kind of article. And I'm like, okay, but where? Like, where are you? What do you serve? Like there's no, so I think the number one thing that people mess up is not necessarily perfecting the design and making something really unique and novel, although there's something to be said for that. Like the properties that I think, your audience, your listeners are going to be focused on are unique design wise. So I think you want to showcase that with videos and photos on the website. But honestly, it's just like clarity. Like, what am I getting? Where is it located? Having a date picker there is obviously like people think of an OTA, they think of a date picker. I think you want the same thing on your website. I think that's the number one mistake people make is just making it too confusing and unclear.
I completely agree. I think that's not just for this, but also marketing as a whole. I think because people are so in the weeds with what they're doing, they almost assume that everyone else has as much information about what they're doing as they do, and they forget the very core basics of, where is the property, what can you do on the property, etc. And it's the same. You see people with businesses on LinkedIn, and they have like 2-3 paragraphs on what their business does, and you can read it all through, and you're none the wiser when you come through the end of it. So I think that's absolutely bang on. Was there any other any other website fundamentals that you think are pretty important for outdoor hospitality?
Yeah, I think, and I lose sight of this myself too. So I'm saying this almost as a reminder to myself. We forget that the majority of our traffic is mobile. That trend has been continuing to edge into more and more mobile to now when I look at client websites who get a significant amount of traffic, it's not uncommon for us to see 70, 75%, 80% of traffic being mobile instead of desktop. But we're in, on the marketing side, on the execution side, we're in this desktop world. We're working and we open, these websites all day on our desktop computers. I say desktop, I mean laptop, just a full-size computer type thing. And I think we always forget that our guest is most of the time visiting through a mobile device. So I have to consciously remind myself in proofing or when we go through designs to pop open my phone, actually put it on my phone, look at the proof, go through it, and think about how things collapse down into a phone. It's not just taking the same components and making them smaller. Any decent, half decent website, developer can make something mobile responsive, but making it optimized for mobile, I think, is a different conversation. How does the date picker go or stay with you as you go down the page? What information is sticky? What goes away? Does the email mode will pop up nicely on mobile? Is it easy to close? Is it hard to close? How does the links, are they clear enough? Are the buttons large enough so my big thumb can fit on them? Those kind of pieces. I think it's a mistake that I make too. Again, that's why I'm saying it, to not really think carefully about the mobile experience. In fact, I can make the argument that you should probably design the mobile site first now and then do the desktop site second, not the other way around, which is what I think a lot of us tend to do, ourselves included. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how about the booking calendar and the process of actually going from the website to making a booking? Presumably that's pretty important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, honestly, the branded copy here is Airbnb. Let's be honest. They've thought about those interaction designs more than I think most OTAs. Vrbo and some of the other platforms out there, even Booking.com, I think is pretty solid in that department. But, you'd be shocked how often you click on a date picker on many sites and it opens up the keyboard on mobile, going back to that idea. And it's those little things that, it just knocks the polish off of the whole experience. And are one of those things going to, kill your ability to get a direct booking? No, probably not. But it's it sums up. So, if it's clunky to use on mobile, the button's not there, the date picker doesn't work, it's this whole collective experience that if you it's no different than when you stay in a vacation rental property and the lights don't work properly, the AC was not, it's it all adds up to a 3-star review, and you don't want your guests to have a 3-star experience when they're on your website. So yeah, I think the date picker is important, a lot, and people skip over it. It's just a simple interaction, but it's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's criminal when people don't get the booking experience right. I was booking a stay at a hotel to take a potential investor to a site visit for the startup that we're working on, and this is a big brand, or it's kind of a sub brand of a big brand hotel chain, kind of $500-$600 a night hotel. You would expect it to be a pretty seamless booking experience, and I had to go through 2 different websites, kind of 5 or 6 different clicks to actually get the booking. And honestly, it was annoying me. It was, and people forget that that's part of the experience. That the experience doesn't start when you walk through the door; it starts when you go on the website or see the first bit. So, I thought that was terrible, to be honest. And I think if I could give one piece of advice to people on web design, it's make the booking experience seamless. And as you say, the likes of Airbnb, they'll have tested and iterated thousands of times their booking experience, and so they've got it obviously nailed on. And you're probably never going to get as seamless an experience as Airbnb, but as you say, it's something to emulate perhaps, and at the very least just make it easy, in my opinion.
Yeah. Again, clarity, right? If you can nail the clarity piece, then you're kind of already halfway there at least. And if it doesn't trip you up, if you can at least get to the next stage, there's something to be said for that. It's so funny. I thought the same thing, that all these luxury brands would have it figured out. We went to Four Seasons website a while ago to get inspiration for more of a luxury client we were working with. And we left kind of disappointed. We didn't see anything in the Four Seasons website that really blew us away. And that's one of the most successful, luxury hospitality brands on the planet. And their website booking experience is a little clunky. The room types are really hard to figure out what I'm actually getting. You have to click all these hidden kind of clickable, foldable accordions on the website. And I didn't love it. And we kind of ended up starting the session thinking, oh, let's replicate what they're doing. Let's copy the big guy. And then we ended the session I think we can do it better than them, honestly, with this luxury brand we were working with. So yeah, I think you've got to have your own point of view, and certainly don't want to copy without your own thoughts. Like I think that you can find yourself in a pickle then if you're copying and you don't know why you're copying. But if you look to a large platform like Airbnb for inspiration on how the calendar works, I think you can learn from that if you think about it from a user perspective.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about booking calendars is, we talk a lot about upsells in glamping. It might be hampers, it might be romance kind of champagne packages or some more packages and things like that. And I also think I see glamping sites and Airbnb, not Airbnb, but short-term rental operators making it less than seamless to add on those things to when they're booking. I think really it should be as simple as you book, you select the nights you want, you add on whatever you want to add on, and then you check out, and it's all one seamless experience. But again, a lot of people leave a lot of money, I think, on the table by making it a bit more difficult than it has to be. So that's another thing I'd add onto that as well.
Yeah, and we haven't done this yet, to be clear, but we had a client who we went pretty far into like a discovery process with, who wanted to do all of that post-checkout, which I thought was really interesting. So it was like, get the reservation first, and then this is a classic like direct, marketing kind of like ClickFunnels approach where you get their credit card, you get them to buy something small, and then you keep hitting them with ascending elements. So it's like, I've got your reservation, I've got your base stuff down, but by the way, Nick, would you like to add in, like you said, the romance package? But I've already got their credit card. So if they abandon that stage, no harm, no foul. I already got their reservation. But if they add these extra things on, I can offer them 3, 4, 5 upsells. Like a post-checkout bump is like the common phrase in a direct marketing context. And I think there's something to be said for that, but no vacational website or PMS or anything like that I've ever seen works like that. So I think there's also something to be said for, you probably want to use the off-the-shelf stuff to get going, but at some point you might reach a stage where it's like, I think I have a better idea. I think a better way of executing on this. If I can justify it from an investment perspective, can I make money by doing these post-checkout upsell bumps? And if you phrase it the right way, I absolutely think that there's more to be said for like adding steps after the process of booking as opposed to before, like you're describing. But both can work, to be clear. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's a great point, and the beauty of being a smaller operator is, unlike the Four Seasons, you don't have to go through about 25 different committees to approve a test like that. You can maybe say, okay, for the for the next 3 months we'll try it like this, and the 3 months after we'll try it like that. See which one works better, and we'll go whichever works. So yeah, there's no right way of doing things, as long as I think it always has to be seamless, but. There's no right way of doing things, and the beauty of being an individual operator is that it's a lot easier to test these things out than having to go through all those committees. So
that's a classic. Sorry, real quick. That's a classic one-way door versus two-way door, which is like a big Jeff Bezos thing. Since I heard that a while ago, it like sticks in my brain all the time. Which is that when you're small and you go through, you make a decision, and it turns out to be the wrong decision, just undo the decision, right? Like no harm generally befalls you in that scenario. Oh, the post-checkout, bumps didn't work. Like we tried them, 100 people booked and not many people took them. Okay, just take it off, no big deal, right? But people think that it's like this one-way decision. Like, oh, as soon as we make this decision, everything's going to change forever. And it's like, it's not usually like that if you're small. Like you don't have to worry about those kind of things. So also why I'm not a big fan of A/B testing for like 99% of people. Like you don't really need to do A/B testing because you don't have enough data to make like an actual decision off of A/B tested websites or buttons or pricing or something like that. You just kind of got to throw it out there and then see what happens and start to like judge how it's performing. So yeah, that's like a classic in my mind, right? Like two-way door, like just make the call. If it doesn't work, undo it. Like not the end of the world.
Yeah, and onto the next stage, onto the next kind of topic, which is maybe a little bit more technical, so we may have to go a little bit slower on this, but it's SEO, or search engine optimization. Before we go into the specifics, could you just provide a brief explanation of what search engine optimization is?
Yeah, so I was challenged with this a while ago because I do think it's a deep well you can fall into if you want to like study every aspect of it. But I think for the average small business owner in our space out there, they don't need to be an expert at like exactly how ranking and indexing retrieval works. That's like, getting a PhD to like change a bed sheet in chemistry. Like it's just not necessary in my opinion. So in my mind, SEO is just 4 areas, right? There's the technical component. That's the actual website like we were talking about a minute ago. What is Google actually indexing and crawling, and how do you change the content and the information on that web page? So that's step 1, is like, is the technical website or the technical framework of the website in good shape? Can I modify it? Can I change it? Those sorts of things. There's link building, which is anyone actually referencing my website? Are people pointing to it? Google used links around the web to kind of tell them what might matter or what might be important. It's fair to assume, here in the US at least, that the New York Times is a more authoritative website than, your local newspaper that's in your town, for example, if they have a website, because New York Times has a lot more links pointing to it. So like that's an oversimplified version of it, but people just don't think about that side of it, which is link building is an important piece of promoting your business. And Google uses those links to find websites and then therefore potentially rank those websites in search. There's keyword research, which is what are people actually searching for? And then there's content creation, which is that what page do I have that matches what they're searching for? So I came up with this framework, TLCK. It's nice and easy to remember. technical, link building, keyword research, content creation, and everything in SEO in my mind falls into one of those 4 buckets. And in the book that I have, and you mentioned that you can pop the link in the show notes, we go into a little bit more detail of what each of those elements are if you want to like dive in. But I hope the person listening wouldn't get overwhelmed by it, because if they're listening and they're starting their business in this kind of outdoor hospitality space, they probably want like their website to be indexed in Google. Like people just need to be able to find the website. It needs to exist. It needs to be out there. Google needs to find it, which is like a one-day process. Get the website built out, get it in Search Console, and you're kind of good to go in that respect. You want a brand that people are actually searching for, which is, I think we're going to dive into that in a second. And you want to make sure that like if you're creating content, that people are actually searching for what you're creating, and that what you're creating is comprehensive. So if you're doing the 10 best restaurants in area, you've done the research to understand that your article is actually a solid one that Google should be ranking. If you think about it more from the user perspective and less about like, how do I game Google? I think you come up with a much more like solid SEO plan than trying to make it very technical, honestly.
Hello, this is just a brief interruption to remind you that you can now own a piece of Glampitect's glamping developments. We've come together with fellow industry professionals and serial entrepreneurs to form Posh Outdoors, a brand new luxury glamping development startup. If you want to invest in the next big thing in the glamping industry, you now can through our crowdfunding campaign, where private investments are available for larger investors. Full details are in the description, but here's regular podcast co-host Connor Schwab explaining why he's excited about Posh Outdoors. If you have any questions, just email nick@glampitect.com. Thanks.
I think the best part about Posh, or that I'm most excited about, is in our work, in what we do, we see the struggles of the industry. We help people launch these businesses. So I know what the pain points are. And if you've listened to me on the show, the 2 biggest hurdles to the expansion of this industry and expansion of supply is, one, getting zoning and permitting to be allowed to run a business on beautiful land. And the second is a lack of capital. And Posh is solving that problem for the landowner and operator, the capital problem. So they go out, and the landowners and operators, they solve the zoning and the permitting problem, and you guys bring the capital to the table. So it's kind of divvying up those 2 main tasks. So I think it solves a real need.
Yeah, and I think to because a lot of that is pretty kind of nebulous and hard to wrap your head around. So to give it a specific example, let's say you mentioned a blog, 10 best things to do in Edmonton, whatever. That kind of content has been very effective for my business, for Glampitect, because we have blogs out there that are, we've researched, okay, what search terms are people searching for in glamping, and it's how to start a glamping business, zoning for glamping, glamping business startup costs, and we wrote blogs around those terms, including the keywords in the blogs and in the titles. And now our blogs rank pretty highly for when you search those. So if you search how to start a glamping business, we'll be first or second result. I think we are. Zoning for glamping, we're number 1. And so without getting too technical, if you apply that model to a glamping business, it would be, okay, are people searching, if you've got a glamping site in Edmonton, are people searching top 10 fun things to do in Edmonton? You can create a blog that is 99% valuable and doesn't talk about your business at all, but it brings traffic to your website. You can also maybe put in a plug. One of the best things to do in Edmonton is stay at our glamping site, and creating useful content that has keywords related to what people are searching for is it's worked for us. I can vouch for it, and I think it's not something you see too many glamping operators doing, but I think there's a pretty wide market for it.
And it may be the case, and I haven't done a lot of keyword research into different markets to know if this is exactly the case or not, but it may be the case that not many people are searching in some areas for like glamping in destination, right? There may not be a lot of searches happening there, which in that case, I know we talked about this before we hit record, maybe search is not the best channel for a lot of glamping operators. And that's okay, by the way. Whenever, everyone, I guess, has this idea in their head that like, I have to have a plan of how I'm going to approach SEO. I have to have a plan for social media. I have to have a plan for email marketing, which is kind of the core channels that we teach and that we work with. But it's like, we have clients that are really weak in one area and really strong in another, and it doesn't matter because they get what they need, or they're making progress, or they're getting the visibility they want, etc. And you've got to kind of find too, like, what your property is well suited for. Like if you're out in a destination that no one searches for on Google, search is going to have a pretty limited ceiling. There's only so many people in a given day, week, month, etc. that search for you. It's also something that I've noticed in the past, people are adverse to advertising because they'll say something to the effect of, well, I can't outspend Airbnb, or I can't outspend, one of the glamping OTA sites. And it's like, I always say this is always my response to that. The goal is not to outspend Airbnb. The goal is for the ads to be profitable. So it doesn't really matter if you're spending $10 a day, $5 a day, $100 a day, $1,000 a day. If the ads are profitable and they're meeting your business goals, then it doesn't matter if you have a lower budget. There's 4 ad slots. So even if Airbnb is taking up one every single time, for example, it doesn't mean that your ad can't be profitable in the second slot or the first slot, depending on what audience targeting you're doing and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's, we get hesitant maybe because we are wading into something unknown. We maybe have put a lot of money out there to build the site. I imagine in this case, like your audience is a little bit different than some other people in that respect. They probably don't have like traditional financing and those sorts of things. But without marketing, like the analogy I always do is like we've got a Ferrari, but it's parked in the garage with no gas. Like we need marketing to kind of drive people into the website, and search is just one tool to get there. And SEO may not be the perfect channel for a lot of people, and that's okay. There's other channels that you can leverage, and of course we can talk about that as we go along here. But
yeah, and we'll go into paid search in a second. I would just add, if anyone is trying to figure out, what are people searching for in my area or related to my business, then there's a tool called SEMrush. There's also similar kind of tools, and they often have free trials, and you can search how many people are searching for glamping in New York or things to do in Edmonton, whatever. So that maybe give you a bit of an insight as to whether it might be worth investing in SEO. Certainly what would require an investment is the next topic we're going to be discussing, and that's paid search. Now that is obviously cold hard money that you have to spend. So you just give us, first of all, again, a definition of paid search and what it entails and what people have to do.
Well, it feels like it used to be so easy to define Google ads where it was mostly search, right? You go on Google, you do a search for, again, glamping in Edmonton as your example. We can keep going with that. And you'll typically see 3 or 4 ads at the top of the search results, and then you see the organic underneath. Nowadays, though, it feels like, search ads, when you run ads on Google, it's really like they're not really pushing you to do just search ads anymore. They want you to run these performance max campaigns, which are distributed out to YouTube, and they're distributed to display. They're now sending Gmail style emails. So if someone's using Gmail, they're going to get targeted in those ads too. So I feel like that definition, I need to rework it a little bit as paid media maybe, or Google paid media is kind of different. Of course, there's, social ads on Facebook and Instagram. I think we'll come into that in a second. But for the most part, when I think search ads, I think of that traditional google.com or google.co.uk maybe search interface that people are using. And then there's text ads that show up at the top. They click, you pay a cost per click fee, and then they're directed to your website. That's the classic simple definition of it. But it feels like that definition is getting further and further from how Google's actually going as we go into 2024 and beyond. But yeah, maybe we don't have time to go over all those different ad services. But yeah.
Would you think classic paid search still works, where you pay to rank at the top of Google?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's still the bulk of what we're spending. Our MCC spends collectively. We're recording this obviously kind of as summer's getting going here. We'll spend maybe a little over 300,000, 400,000 this month coming up on search ads. And then the minority of that will be put into these performance max campaigns and other campaigns. So to be clear, I think it's Google making that change to maximize their reach in other channels. I don't think that's necessarily what's optimal for the, you, the advertiser. You're the one shelling that money over. I think search ads are still the best bang for the buck. And the analogy I always draw for people who are new or just kind of deciding what's most optimal is that if you're bidding on a relevant keyword in Google and people are searching for it, you have exactly what they're looking for, assuming you bid on the right keywords, of course. So the message match there is so strong. What they're looking for, you serve it up at that exact moment. The search campaigns are typically going to convert a lot better than social, which is what I call more traditional interruption advertising, which is that you're doing something else, you're scrolling social media, and then I kind of try to lure you away into what I'm offering you with a video, a picture, a static ad, something like that, and say, hey, come check out what I'm doing, which those can work, don't get me wrong. We run Facebook and Instagram ads for many of our clients, but going back to search ads, the reason they work so well is that people in that moment are looking for glamping in Edmonton. They're looking for that exact thing. So if you have it, the conversion rate that we get from search ads is 10x better than what we see typically on other social platforms.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your paid social media ads, so your Facebook ads and Insta ads and kind of the things you do with those?
Yeah, so I think typically on the paid social side of things, obviously there's an organic component to social and there's a paid component to social. The benefit of paid is that obviously we can, give Facebook or Meta, I'm putting this in air quotes, I have to remind myself to use the term Meta, but Facebook and Instagram, think of them as one bucket for the most part, even though the media you distribute on those platforms is going to be a little bit different. You pay for the ads in one interface. It's basically Facebook and Instagram know so much about your behavior. They know so much about where you're located, what you're interested in, that sort of thing. That really is one of the few channels you have where you can introduce your properties to new people. And in this space, I think that's going to matter a little bit more than it would for maybe your traditional, apartment, condo, house rental, vacation rental business. Someone in the glamping space is kind of creating demand out of thin air in a way, right? There may not, back to my earlier comments about search, there may not be enough people in a given day or week or month that are searching for glamping in your market. So you kind of have to create that demand. That demand, in my mind, can certainly come from paid advertising on social media because you can show these properties to people. And there's one thing I think this kind of side of our industry does well. It's they think a little bit more, in my experience, about design, about views, about amenities. It's a little bit more about the experience of the stay and a little bit less about checking boxes, which I think is what a lot of traditional vacation rental people think. all right, well, I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in a nice community, it has these amenities, etc. There'll be some demand for that. I can put the address into AirDNA. It'll tell me what the revenue will do. And that's great. That's fine. Like, a lot of our clients are in that bucket. But this bucket is a little bit different, to where I think paid social can do a lot better, because you could show it. Here's a video of what it's going to be like to stay here. Here's the views once you get out the back of one of these properties into the forest, into the whatever, right? Like, that side of thing. So I think paid social in this kind of your audience would be a little bit more of a lever to play with, if they have something that's visually appealing enough where people are drawn into it once they see a photo or a video of it, basically.
Yeah, and going on to the next topic, organic social media is obviously that is that everyone knows that's a big thing in glamping. It's the kind of Instagrammability of the whole thing, and glamping sites are generally more Instagrammable. You've got the amazing views, the privacy. It's pretty conducive to good influencer content as well. Do you have any general kind of guidelines on social media content that you post to your clients?
I think for us, it's always a challenge for us being the agency from afar. I think it's something that you should be careful about how much level, like what level of delegation you're comfortable with. I think it's something that some of our clients want us to just handle the social for them, or getting social for them. And our results sometimes aren't as good as I want them to be, because we don't have as much media to work with as we would like. So I would say, even if you're working with an agency or someone externally to like do the actual physical posting of the content on social media, I would advise you not to like let go of the idea that it's your job to like make it visually appealing in the first place. So it may be the design of the property, it may be the filming, getting some of those skills yourself, etc., instead of having to constantly rely on videographers and photographers. I'm not disputing that those people can add a lot of value in some situations, but you certainly can't have them out every day, right? Like, or every month. You probably don't have the budget for that. You mentioned, like influencers before. That's a layer we could go down or not. But typically, influencers have the reach they have on social media because they understand the mediums of that platform. They know how to post on Instagram, what times, what formats work well, what kind of creative works well from a photo and video perspective. So I think the glamping operator probably is best served by like studying those people and then more mimicking them, or finding a style that works for them, and not just deferring down all social media to an agency, myself included, like to our agency, because I think your results are always going to be tough if you don't give the people who are posting the right materials to work with, the right photo content, the right video content.
And the other element of that as well is, and not every successful glamping business does this, but I know a lot of successful operators who the owner is a big part of the brand. They'll post, they'll have meet the owner events. They'll post Instagram lives where they're just talking to the camera. And I think you lose a little bit of that by offloading your content entirely to an agency. And I think maybe something to consider is if you are good on camera, you're passionate about the space you've created and the experience you're creating, then I think that can really add an element to your marketing that and adds to your brand as well, if you're kind of front and center of it, if you're good at that kind of thing as well.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that like I've gone down this path of creating content on LinkedIn, and when I post the same stuff from our company page, I get 5 to 10x less reach than when I post it from my personal profile. So it's like people may come online and they want to stay, with a glamping resort ABC, whatever the case may be. But if they can see a person behind that and they feel like there's this kind of quasi-social relationship there, then yeah, like your content will get more reach, because they're not just following glamping site ABC, but they're following Nick or John or Joe or Mary or whoever the case may be. So. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I mean, on LinkedIn's a little bit different. Obviously, it's not necessarily as relevant for, say, a glamping operator. That I barely even post on Glampitect LinkedIn page now. It's just I just post myself, because it's, first of all, you get way better reach from an individual posting than a company, but also it is more personable. People get to know you rather than just a faceless brand. So I completely agree on that. Cool. And then the final topic, and this is something I don't think we've talked about too much on the podcast, maybe dipped into it a couple of times, but I think it's something that we should talk a little bit more about, because I think it can be really powerful once you have an existing audience at your glamping site. And you have to do things to get that audience, which I'm sure we'll go into. But email marketing is a really powerful tool that really is less about generating first-time guests, but kind of encouraging customer retention. So again, could you just give us a brief overview of email marketing and the steps you take to implement a really effective email marketing campaign?
Yeah, so the first thing that we highlighted in the book is that there's always going to be an offline and online component to email collection. So you're right? Like we're not generating new business off email. It's really more marketing back out to previous guests or even previous contacts, right? We have clients who get, let's say, 20, 30 signups every day on their email list. Only one of them may book, but there's still 29 contacts that we can then market to who will likely book in the coming weeks, months, et cetera. So yeah, email in my mind is like, probably the least exciting or sexy part of the, marketing stack. No one's ever like, man, like I can't wait to send this email out. And yet some of our clients, it ends up being like their second or third referring source and booking channel when you look at all the direct bookings that they get coming in are people who clicked on an email at one point before they made a reservation. So, it's really, you can't really, match it up with any other marketing channel because very few channels do you have permission to send someone a message directly. And does that message typically get anywhere from a 25 to a 50% open rate where you actually know they've at least seen it and they've engaged with it in some way? You're not going to get that kind of reach on organic social as far as people that have stayed with you, in the past on page, that you're paying for each additional click. Whereas when your email list grows, your nominal cost to market back to people through email go up very marginally. Your list gets bigger, you pay a little bit more to MailChimp or HubSpot or whatever, but it's not a significant difference as far as cost goes to your marketing, but it's a significant difference as far as the audience that you're building over time. So yeah, I think the analogy here, of course, is the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So even someone small, like they're not going to see a lot of early wins from doing offline or online email collection, probably in their glamping business in the first week, month, few months, probably. They're not going to see anything. And then a year later, they're going to be like, oh, wow, we have a list of 1,000 past guests that we could market to, or we have a list of 2,000 people that have inquired, and that can be really powerful.
Yeah, and the key part is email collection. You can't do email marketing if you don't have any email addresses in your database. So could you give us some ideas about how operators can collect email addresses?
Yeah, so I think offline wise, I'm always going to push StayFi as the optimal solution. Now with glamping, I can imagine that could get a little bit trickier with respect to like, is there Wi-Fi in the, in each individual kind of unit? I imagine many cases
have to explain what StayFi is first.
Oh, right on. Yeah. So StayFi is basically like a bridge that is between the user accessing the internet and that next step. So they go to access the Wi-Fi. Hey, the password is Nick. I go to connect to the Wi-Fi, your glamping site, and then it says, hey, Nick, go ahead and give us your email address to securely access the internet. And the opt-in rates from what we've seen are typically like in the high 80% range. Obviously, it depends on the location and all that kind of stuff. But if you word it correctly, hey, to securely access the internet, give us your email associated with your reservation or something like that. You'll see a very, very high opt-in rate of people signing up for email. So people want Wi-Fi typically when they're on vacation. Again, glamping may be a little bit of a different beast. Maybe they're coming to disconnect and not be on the Wi-Fi. Do. Yeah, but there's something to be said for that, right? Like they still want to message their friends or FaceTime their mom or dad or whatever, let them know where they're at. So that bridge, offline email collection, I call offline because it's like they weren't necessarily on the website, like they're in the property, but that is obviously a great way to collect real email addresses from past guests. You can't rely, unfortunately, on Airbnb to give you a real email address because they don't want to give you that email address. They want that relationship to be held between you and Airbnb, and the guest has that relationship, not you directly with the guest. So you kind of have to step aside them using a tool like StayFi. I know other people do it through guidebook products, so that's not the only way to do it. I just find that to be the most effective way to do it. But certainly you could say, hey, here's the guidebook. Your guidebook has your door code in it and the Wi-Fi access code in it. If you weren't using something like StayFi, enter your email associated with your reservation to get the guidebook sent to you. And that's another way to gather email addresses as well. Obviously, if you're in the UK or something, keep in mind like GDPR or follow all the regulations and rules and things like that. But for the most part, like you should have a very high success rate in collecting emails offline for sure.
And then the another way I've seen, for example, there's a company called Bulk Farm Treehouse who are very, very successful in the glamping space. And I think what they do as well is they have a pop-up on their website. So if you enter the website, it will pop up and it will say, join our mailing list. It's just straightforward asking to be part of the mailing list, but join our mailing list and you receive a 10% discount or whatever it may be. And I think that's a pretty smart way of getting people to give their emails. They get a benefit from it, but also they're now on your database and you can send them offers and encourage them. And that's when you encourage the first time stays as well. In terms of customer retention for guests that have already come and stayed at the property, have you got any ideas for emails that you can send to your existing customer base that might kind of, from just kind of keep them in touch with the brand, but also eventually encourage them to rebook at all?
Yeah, we have a bunch of ideas in the book. So it's so funny because people always think that a discount is the reason why someone would come back and stay with you again. I don't feel that's actually as strong as a motivator as people think. Now, people want to know they're getting a good rate by booking direct. So I think that the rates on your website should be the best, compared to the rates that you might have on OTA platforms. But I'm not as bullish on like, hey, let's make it all about the discount. Let's make it all about the discount. If they had a great stay, they obviously paid whatever they paid. They'll probably happily come back and pay the same price, right? So I'm not as bullish on that side of it. I think it's more, there's different ideas in there that we could go through. I think it's more, here's what's going on in the area. This event is going on. This attraction is opened. This has changed, that sort of thing. Or what's changed in the properties. Like, I think that's an underrated component that some of our clients, I think, don't do a great job of, which is like, we added a hot tub to this property and we put a new photo, in on the listing page to reflect that. And I'm like, well, let's do an email about it. Like, that's a notable change. If I stayed there before and there wasn't a hot tub, and then I come back and there is a hot tub, like I get excited about coming back. Oh, there's a hot tub this time. My wife, let's go. Like, it might be a fun experience to experience that while we're staying at the site. So making improvements to the property is a valid reason to send an email. A holiday is a valid reason to send an email. Things going on in the area, birthday, anniversary, right? There's so many different things. So I think, having some creative juices going when you send those emails does matter. We have 2 people on our email marketing team, and they sometimes do struggle to come up with new ideas. Like, if the list has been going for several years, it's like kind of hard to come up with new ideas. And sometimes, but ultimately, like, the email itself, if well designed and well timed, will move the needle in my experience. Even if it's something that the call to action isn't amazing, it's just like, come back and stay again. We're awesome. Like, stuff like that can actually work better than you'd expect, as opposed to making something very complex and trying to come up with some crazy, discount program. I think that actually doesn't work as well as people think they do. And I think you're detracting from the message. The message is not stay here for 10% less. The message is come have an awesome experience again. That's, I think, what you're promoting.
And I think it's just to go back to something that you said earlier, I think it's really important that we emphasize that, an email sent out to a mailing list may get, let's say a 20% open rate. That is a far higher percentage of people on the list who see that and read it than, say, a social post sent out to, your 20,000 followers. And I think people get focused on social, forgetting that they have a whole database of people that they can contact, and, a fifth, a quarter, a third of people will open the email and read it and stay in touch with your brand. So I think, people neglect email marketing, but it's absolutely not something that you should neglect, because it is a really powerful tool for new guests, but also, as I say, for retention.
Yeah.
And cheap as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, to that point, it's the only channel that over time actually increases in leverage. Like, you get more bookings out of it, again, while your cost doesn't necessarily increase. So like on social, you can make the argument that once your page gets bigger, you're going to have more followers and so on and so forth. That's fair. With paid, you may find like efficiencies, like your ads convert a little bit better and so on and so forth, but your budget's probably not going to change significantly. Whereas email, like we have clients that have been around for a long time, in more in the traditional vacation rental space. We have a client that's been around since 1987, 1986, that era. So he's got emails, I mean, not from 1986, but he's got emails dating back 10 plus years of people that have stayed with him. And his list is huge, even though he himself is not a massive property manager. And he gets, every time he sends an email, it's like 10 bookings guaranteed, because he has such a large list of people that want to stay with him. Of that set of people that are in there, sure, 20% open, 5% click, something like that. But there's always someone in that audience that is shopping right now. So if we hit them in that moment,
maths.
Yeah, we're going to get them. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pure maths. If you got enough in your database, then you just know the numbers, and eventually you'll get some bites. So, and the other thing as well is, so social media as well, and ads are the paid ads are the same. You're at the whim of Google, of Facebook, of Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and they will change their algorithms all the time. They'll change how they rank ads all the time, and they'll change the cost of the ads all the time. Whereas email, obviously, you have to do it through a provider, but you have a lot more control over it. It's less, it kind of moves less with the whims of the social media companies, and it's a lot more consistent, and you have ownership over it. And it's the same, if you can be the best Airbnb listing in the world, but you have no ownership over those people. Whereas if they come through your website, you've got their email addresses, you have complete ownership over that, and it's a lot more stable and consistent, I would say too.
Yeah. And my take on that always too is like, what kind of company do you want to run? Do you want to run a company that's just off the back of Airbnb? If people are like okay with that risk profile and it doesn't bother them, that's fine with me. Like, I have no problem with people saying that. Like, I'm accepting the fact that this is a little more risky. In exchange, I'm keeping my business simpler, or like I'm not worried as much about Airbnb, not delivering me the bookings I want. Like, I disagree with that philosophy, but I understand if someone's come to that conclusion. What I dislike is when people haven't thought about it and then they're just like, oh no, I can never do, the direct marketing because of reason A or reason B or reason C. And they just haven't put any effort into it. And ultimately, I think the only way you're going to maximize your investment into this business is by marketing in multiple channels, right? Like, having Airbnb is awesome. I love Airbnb. Fantastic. And let's do the other things too. It's an and, not an or, is kind of my take on it for sure.
And out of anything we've discussed so far, is there one thing in particular that you think is particularly important that prospective glamping operators get right with their marketing?
Yeah, so I think of the things we talked about, where I would say the typical, operator is probably a little bit more focused on search, like the typical vacation rental operator in a leisure market. I would suspect for your audience, search may be a little bit less valuable. I think you want to optimize around brand, so people go and search, like you gave the Bolt House, Tree Farms, or Bolt. Sorry, I got the name wrong. But anyways,
Bolt Farm Treehouse.
Bolt Farm Treehouse. Sorry, I got that name wrong. But certainly, when you search for that, I'm sure there's people who are looking for that specific property. The website ranks well. They have social profiles set up. So I would say like those are probably your initial steps, is getting the brand right. It's something unique. It's something that you're, getting out there from a photo video perspective. People are, you're sharing that through social. So I'd argue in this, for your listener, the social experience probably matters a little bit more than if you have 20 condos and, a destination where it's like it's not as intriguing from a social perspective. That for your audience, I would suspect that would be a little bit more important for sure.
And is there one mistake in particular that you see operators making with their marketing consistently?
Waiting for it to be perfect. They want it to be perfect. They want to send out something that's perfect. So in exchange, they do nothing in many scenarios, and they'd be much better off sending out like pretty half-hearted emails that don't look good, or, posting on social, like, somewhat regularly and make it interesting, than to worry about making it perfect and just doing nothing. I think that's the most common mistake I see.
Fantastic, Conrad. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. We always give the guests a chance to pitch their services or whatever they want to pitch at the end of this episode for anyone who might be interested in getting in touch. So I'll give you the floor to explain, what you're offering, how you can help, and where people should go.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. I'm sure people don't stick around for the pitches, so I'll make it very quick.
Oh, they do.
You can go to the website, BuildUpBookings.com. There's a getting started page. You can reach out to us. If you have a property, you have a, something that we could work with. Obviously, we're definitely open to working with people in this space. If you need help with search, social, email, definitely go get started there. Go to BuildUpBookings.com. You can fill out a form there. I have a book, Mastering Vacational Marketing. I think Nick's going to put a link in the show notes to that. You can pick up a copy of that. I think it's $10-15 on Amazon, something like that. You can learn all of my philosophies. I put a lot of effort and time into the book, and I think you can learn a lot by going through that and just applying the different principles of search, social, and email. We just launched a course, so I'm going to give Nick a promo code that I think he'll be able to pop in the show notes, as well as you can save a little bit of money off the course. But yeah, if you're looking to learn in more of like a video format, that's more of your format than a book. We've taken a lot of the concepts, explained them, expanded them further. And we've made kind of like that 101 level course that we wish we could give, the starting host or someone that's getting started with maybe a few properties, building their website, getting their social channel set up, getting the basics set up. It's kind of like what we do for clients, but it's looking over our shoulder and watching a screen recording of it. And we can make that available to people as well. So that's courses.buildupbookings.com. Again, I'll happily send over links, or if you have any questions, you can follow me on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll put a link in the episode. And shall we say the discount code can be Glampitect?
Yeah, we can do that. I'll set that up as soon as we're done here, and that way people can get that discount. Absolutely.
And what discount would it be, sorry?
We'll do $50 off any any course sale, which should knock the price down a little bit and make it a little bit more of a reasonable investment for folks. So yeah, I'm all ears on the course side of things. It's new to us. We hadn't had a course for a very long time, and the format that it's in is like very much like I'm in all the lessons. I'm explaining how we do everything, and I think the value of what we're charging there I think is amazing. But happy to expend a discount to your listeners. Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you. Well, all the links will be in the description of this episode. Conrad, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think there's a lot of golden nuggets in that episode. I do think we should do a whole episode on email marketing at some point, but I'll spare you for a little while. But yeah, thank you. I hope people go and buy the book, buy the course, and follow you. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be having you again sometime. Awesome.
Yeah, if I can help anyone, send me a message on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active. You can email me, but I get too many emails, so I prefer a message. Easier.
No problem. All right, sounds good. Thanks
so much. Thanks, Nick.